Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Making It After 40 podcast. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. First off, I want to welcome the new listeners. I see you, and I'm so happy that you are here, popping in to be part of this community. Thank you, everyone, for all the 5 stars. They mean so much to me. And I'd love to get a few more reviews on Apple Podcasts. So if you have a few minutes, please pop in and drop me a review. Lastly, thank you to those who have bought me a coffee. I so feel the love. The show isn't free to make, what with all the hosting fees and the cost of the virtual studio. So those $5 contributions help me to fund the show. Thank you again. Okay, now down to business. My guest this week is Tom Addis, who is a visual artist who found his niche in animation, specifically stop-motion animation. I've known Tom since I was 20 years old, studying at Lancaster University in England. He was a roommate with my theater friends, and so I got to know him through that friend circle. And we've remained friends ever since. Tom shares with us how he found himself as an artist, which required pushing through and recovering from depression and some mental health challenges. He shares with us how his wife has been instrumental to him finding his way just by giving him that support, encouragement, and space to follow his heart and his gut. I'm really inspired by Tom's vulnerability and the way that his whole family is a part of his art, and he is a part of the work and projects that they work on. So please take a moment and sit back and enjoy my conversation with Tom. Thank you. So today on the show, I have Tom Addis. Tom is a dear, dear friend going back to my days in Lancaster, England, where we met. Yes. Tom is I don't know how you would describe yourself, because I mean,
it's
you're basically
tricky. I was trying to think about it. Yeah.
You're basically a visual artist, but you do many different variations of that. You paint murals is like your big gig right now, but you also make stop motion animation and all kinds of good stuff.
Yes, it's hard to sort of say really what I do, but I suppose the bread and butter that that pays the mortgage is design and web work.
Yeah, okay.
So I kind of taught myself that back in the day, just so I'd have something a bit more solid. Because when we went to get a mortgage many years ago, and they asked what we did, and I said, I'm an artist, and they were like, get out, come back with a proper job. They wouldn't even look at me, so I had to go away and do something proper and come back and be like, now can I have a house, please? So that's my most sort of straight down the line income source. But then, I mix it up and I do the murals, which I happened upon by chance, doing one this week. And in the evenings, puppets and painting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You've always had like a really interesting aesthetic to your work as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Over the years, you've done different things, and you have like I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was like a line of like zombie designs. And
yeah, that was another thing. Yeah. It's just sort of, I don't know. I did, my friend who's a GP diagnosed me last year with ADHD. I think during lockdown, a lot of people were diagnosed because, one, it didn't really exist, the diagnosis, when we were kids. You were just like a regular kid or a sensitive kid, and that was it. And there were the two things. So I was diagnosed with that, and that made a lot of sense because I'm always doing something, always have to keep busy, but it doesn't take over everything. I'm quite relaxed, but I've always got little projects I think about all the time. So, it is multidisciplinary, I suppose.
Yeah. It's so funny. There's so many people that I know that are getting diagnosed with ADHD as adults.
Yes. There were lots of people I knew as well who were getting, who had that diagnosis, because I think, especially during lockdown, we had more time to sort of look at ourselves a bit, and it was in the media a lot more. But I've tried to, it's been really good for me because it's just explained a few things. I don't think it should be an excuse for anything, in terms of behaviors. But it's just made me very aware of why I work in a certain way and how I can use that to work to sort of be more productive going forward.
Oh, that's great. So are you so has that become one of your tools then? Or do you have tools to help you?
I don't. There's a funny, well, it's quite funny. I've got a friend who's also got ADHD, and we were chatting about how we keep discovering these apps and things that are going to sort our lives out. And then we download them and get really into them and then just totally forget. So the next week I'm just like, my wife's saying, I thought you were using the app. And I'm saying, oh yeah, there was the app. And I've completely forgotten about it. So I've just got a very simple diary on my phone, which is right on the front screen to remind me of things. And other than that, it's just been making sure. So if I'm doing the short film, then it doesn't matter if one night I work on the music for the film, one night I work on the artwork, or another night I work on the puppets or the script. As long as I keep that within the same project, then I'm always moving forward with that project, and it's a nice way. So yes, I can be a bit flighty, but as long as it's always moving towards getting that short film done.
Oh, that's really great. That's a great way to approach it.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. It's been nice just knowing how my brain works and how it can help, how I can focus myself a little bit more without constraining.
Yeah.
So yeah. So to use the different disciplines all in one has been really helpful, and that's why I've started to work towards this film this year. That's my sort of current plan.
So why don't you go back and tell us about your journey, like how you kind of fell into the arts, and I know a little bit about what I know from university, but it's been a long time since then. So
it has. It's a strange journey, my one, because I've never really pushed the creative side or the artistic side.
Oh, okay.
I've just kind of bumbled along, and I haven't really promoted myself. I've just sort of, people have come along and said, oh, that's cool, you should do this. And I've gone, okay. And I think, to be totally honest, it's because I was quite unwell when I knew you. So from 20 to now has just been a gradual recovery from mental health issues.
Oh, yeah.
So when I knew you, I think I just had a breakdown. I was about to. I was very, very poorly back in those days.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't realize that.
I know, no one did. I kept it really well hidden, as you do. It wasn't talked about much back in the day.
Yeah.
But then I sort of left university and met Claire, who was just very supportive. And I just slowly got better and have done ever since. I've just sort of slowly done what I need to do, talking therapies, medication where necessary. But of course, the one thing about depression is the one thing it tells you is that you're not very good at things. It just constantly tells you can't do that. It just sort of takes away your confidence. So it's just been a slow building of confidence, more through me just doing stuff and people going, oh, that's really cool. And me saying, is it? And not really pushing myself. But it's quite nice to be on a podcast about making it after 40, because I don't really feel I was ready to make anything until I was 40.
Yeah.
I wasn't mature enough creatively, or I wasn't sort of well enough. It doesn't mean I didn't do things. I've done sort of lots of weird, strange things as I went on. I was a jobbing artist for a while and doing paintings when I was younger. And then I sort of taught myself design and web as a way just so that I could do something creative. But yeah, it's only been when I felt really, really good a couple of years back that I just thought, right, this is now the time when you can actually do what you want to do, which is to make some short films.
Yeah.
And that came about just at sort of lockdown time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's only been in the last few years that I've actually taken stock of all the things I've done. I've only just put together a website of the things I've done, and I was thinking, wow, it's strange to look back and think, oh, you did that huge mural you've just forgotten about, or you wrote that pilot and stuff. But yeah, it's very strange having a mental illness, which is sort of tells you that you aren't good enough and that you can't do things. It's been a long sort of battle with it, but wow. I feel good at the moment. Yeah, that's
really amazing that you've been able to overcome it and work through it. And of course, Claire is amazing. And
yeah, we just got ourselves. We just made sure we're in a situation where I used to work in offices and stuff when I was younger, and I was so unhappy. And she just said, "Well, if you want to be poor and paint, then be poor and paint.
Yeah,
we'll be fine." Especially where we live, we're very lucky. And she she told me, so I just quit my office job and started painting commissions for people. And I have done ever since. I've always worked for myself since then. But yeah, she's been a huge support.
That's awesome. And what did you study at university?
I mean, when I knew you, that's the thing. I had just no concept that I could do something that I could do a course that would lead to something I wanted to do. I just didn't see any future. Again, one huge thing that depression does, it kind of turns all the lights off in the city. I always explain it like that. So you've just got one kind of path and everybody else is over there, but you can't see them. Yeah. It's all a bit sort of unknown and dark. So I just kind of picked a course so I could be at university and party a bit, really. So I just kind of did philosophy I did creative writing. So that was good that got me to sort of scripts. And then I finished and then went to work as an accountant for a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was I was all right at it. I was very bored. And then I quit that and I did a master's in fine art. Yeah. Which was the first time I'd sort of picked a course which was something I like to do. And that sort of got me more into the painting side of things. Yeah. And then, after that, I just sort of I went to evening class to sort of learn graphics and web so that I could sort of bring in the mortgage. And I think it's very hard to create if you're worried about money or if you're trying to live purely off your art.
Yeah, that's something that I've been dealing with in the last couple of years, since I've been, when I was staying at home and then auditioning and not booking anything and, feeling the pressure.
And then it snowballs. Yeah. And then you got pressure on yourself because you're like, what am I doing? I had, so I think, we talked about doing this podcast before and then I got in touch to say, I went completely silent on you and said, I've been having a small crisis. Yeah. And that was just after Christmas when I was thinking, I was like, what are you doing? You sort of, you haven't started doing the film yet, but you're also not really pushing the work side of things with the sort of the business that brings in the bread and butter. So I just had like 3 days where I was a bit grumpy with myself. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Like that sort of self-pressure. I was like, you've got everything laid out. It's ready to go this year. This is the year you can do this. So it was quite an easy fix. I said to myself, well, just start doing it then. Stop wittering about it in your head and actually start doing it. So every night now I work on the film, put the kids to bed, make a fire, put some jazz on, and I work on the film for at least an hour. Yeah. So I'm always working towards it. And then that's just got rid of that pressure because I thought whatever's happening, you are working towards that project that you think about all the time.
That's great. It's hard to kind of work in that box sometimes even because, I went back to work in September full time. Yeah. And so I do the podcast at night or in the early morning in our case. Yeah. But, in the evenings, I'll come home and edit or I'm emailing people and coordinating my next guest or whatever it is. And sometimes it really kind of beats you down in the idea that like, God, I'm always working. I'm always doing something. I just want to be able to like make this my day job. But I think like you said, it does help like knowing that you're taking steps towards the passion project. Yeah.
And also, I think if you're relying on the art to make the money, I did that for a while and it really put me off making anything. It's sort of to get up on a Monday, even though I was being paid to paint sometimes, I'm like, oh, got to paint. And I'll tell myself, it's good that you're getting paid to paint. That's a lovely thing. Yeah. But especially, when we're with families and stuff, sometimes you're just like, oh, shall I just stop it and go and get a regular job? But then if you can make sure that you can sort of pay the bills. Yeah. And then have just a bit of time each week that is yours to work towards what you're doing. I mean, you're doing incredible with, with sort of working family and plus doing the podcast. It's such an achievement.
Thanks.
And I think it is. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's hard.
I know, but it's worth it. Got all these amazing people on here. My wife and I were listening to your podcast this week, and it's this thing that you've created, and it's wonderful. And that's the nice thing for people like you and me is that although the digital age has its downfalls, at the moment, we can sit here with minimal equipment and you've got a full podcast, which is out to the world. And then, a few years back, you couldn't have that.
No. It's really crazy. Oh, I was going to say, it's just interesting because it's different because, I've created stuff that I throw up on Instagram or YouTube, but this is like a completely, I feel like that's almost like it's so hard for it to reach people unless they happen to follow you. But this, it has such a more broad reach.
Absolutely. Yeah. And podcasts are the way forward. People love them. And the nice thing is that it's there and it's permanent. So when people find when they find your podcast, they're like, "Oh, this is brilliant. I'll go back and listen to the others," and
Yeah.
your views hop up. I mean, that's what started the Stop Frame for me, was an accidental video. I've been making weird content just for me and songs and all sorts all the time, and it was one small video of a Stop Frame farmer that I'd made, and the making of it that got us all the attention that started the animation company, which I do with my best friend Chris, because we just started looking at the numbers, and it went 10,000, 20,000, and hit 100,000, and nothing I'd ever done had hit those numbers. And I'd be just checking all the time and texting him, and I was like, "Are we about to hit 200,000 views?" And he was like, "I don't know what's happening." And that's just the random chance, isn't it? It's just algorithms.
Yeah.
But if you put it out there and you're desperate to have views, it will affect the work you're doing. You'll be so worried about that, it'll affect things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just enjoying what you're doing and you put it out there in decent quality and you sort of say, "Oh, here's what I'm doing," then people can find you. Algorithms can find you. People can hop on board.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of things at the moment. So yeah, but that was a nice boost for us. That's how I started doing the Stop Frame.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me more about that. Cause I mean, when you started the Stop Frame, I know that you had gone to, was it Valencia? You were in Spain for an art school.
Yes.
And then, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you share, because I was like, from my perspective, you were doing the art school and then you guys started traveling and then you started the Stop Frame. And so I was curious about how that evolved.
Well, yeah, we've always been a little random. Both Claire and I work for ourselves and always have done, so we can have some more sort of freedom. And every 10 years we go on a big trip. So we did it just before the kids. We went around North America and Canada and Japan.
Yes. Yeah.
And then during lockdown, we had the girls just seemed really happy with us with homeschooling. And it was my eldest daughter's final year before high school. So we just thought, well, why don't we just go for another wander? I'd been working 2 jobs. I'd been doing an evening job to sort of save up. So we just rented the house out and we just set off. So I thought I'll just take some time to learn some new skills to learn animation. I thought I'd be doing 2D animation.
Yeah.
But then, we lived in Valencia for a while. But then we went to Canada to see my best friend who lives out there. And I don't know how we got chatting about it. Chris and I were just talking one evening about it. And I just started playing with some clay. I got COVID out there for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
So I was indoors for a week. So I just got some plasticine and I got a Stop Frame and I made one video. And the first video I put out, which was a sort of weird creature opening an egg, which is like a hell portal. I seem to have a lot of hell portals in my work.
Yeah.
But with that kind of music, it's sort of lift music in the background. And I just put it on. And then we got contacted almost straight away by a Swedish art magazine.
Oh, wow.
Saying, "Can we do an interview with you?" And I said, "You can. I haven't done anything." But I've literally just made this weird carrot-nosed creature. And these 2 women were like, "No, we love it." And then Chris and I made the video about making the puppets and starting in an animation studio. Yeah. And that's the one that hit the huge views. That's the one that got, I think, 250,000 views or thereabouts. So it started to snowball. And I just thought that wasn't my intention of going away to start doing Stop Frame, but it was my intention to go away with a clear head, be away from everything and just sort of see what I fancy doing, really. And then I thought, I can't ignore this kind of attention. People seem so happy with it. The compliments, the comments were so lovely as well. People seem to like the weird characters that I make.
Yes.
Because they're kind of fun, they're kind of dark, but in a funny way as well. They're kind of, not pure David Lynch Eraserhead. There's always a little quirky angle to them as well. And people seem to like them. And the comments just came in and the followers. And I just thought, it would be so stupid to stop doing this and not to follow it up. So we just started to do that. And then since then, we've written the 2 scripts to choose from, and we're just working towards the first short film now.
That's awesome. And so how are you guys working? He's in Vancouver still, right?
Chris is in Vancouver. It's very tricky. So the first stuff we did was together because we were both there together. And then we've come away and thought, well, it's obviously not going to work in terms of Chris being with me all the time here or me being there. But what's going to happen is that my plan for this year is to get a small studio here in Stoke-on-Trent, because there's a lot of, it's an old industrial town. There's a lot of support for new arts. They do like to sort of nurture, and there's some really cheap places, warehouses and things. So the plan is to make a short, show what we can do, get a studio, and then we would try to get funding so that Chris could come over and we could spend a few weeks doing big chunks of work, and then eventually work out where we could both work together. But we're not worrying about it too much at the moment. Chris is sort of working on his short film and I do mine. But I'm just so lucky because when I started to do it and make puppets, so did Chris, and he's just an incredible puppet maker. He's like a master puppet maker, and he's a cinematographer. So it would be really silly. It's so good. He's my best friend, and we just sit and could work together. We have done since we were 10, and it would be so strange for us not to do it. It seems like it's all set out for this year. So it's kind of like, I don't believe in signs or anything, but it was a nice sort of a nice boost to say, go in this direction. You love doing it. People seem to like it.
Yeah. That's so great. And then it's interesting how when you kind of just follow your heart and follow the things that light you up, they come together in this kind of way. And I think you're absolutely right. If you're getting such a huge response in such a positive way and it feels good to you, you enjoy the work, then you absolutely should follow it for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice sometimes to know what you are good at, but not great at. And that's been a nice thing for me to think. I like to paint, and I get paid to paint huge murals, and that's really good fun. But I've seen some incredible muralists out there, and I think, well, would I like to do it full time all the time? Probably not, but I do enjoy it. It's a nice way to make money, and I'm very lucky to do it. But when I'm sitting here and I finish a little cat puppet or a demon, or I make a little miniature sofa and I get it all together and do a test shot, the feeling is unbelievable, and I've never had that before. Everything's coming together. I've got the music that I've made. I've got the script that I've written, because we're quite rare that we've got that all in one.
Yeah. You guys are able to make the music. Yeah, because you write music and you make music. Yeah.
Yeah, we've always been, Chris and I were always in bands together, and then I went off in different bands, but a little side hustle I do. So I make house music. I like to make house music.
Yeah.
And sort of 80s and sort of synth, dark wave as well. And I just want to make some sort of stop frame, which has that kind of retro feel, sort of dark wave music. But again, I'm lucky because I don't have to ask someone to do it for me and hope they do what what we need for the film, because I'm making it. Or I'm just very lucky in that way. We can just do everything in house, and have singular vision. And then because we've sort of set up ways in terms of I still do sort of web design and murals, I'm not having to worry too much about the money side. I can just make what we want, however weird it is, and not have to worry about audience or anything like that. We can just, have like a sort of singular vision about it, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I similarly, we're a little bit in-house over here because my husband, Jeff, does all the music for the podcast and for my videos. And, he doesn't identify as an artist at all, but he's a great musician, and he is. I've
always seen you guys. I've seen the videos, early on when you get you singing to his guitar and everything. And I think if you have that, if you have a partner who doesn't really understand what you're doing, it would be so tricky. But luckily, So Claire's always pushed me forward and said, and she'll help to organize me because I'm not very good at organizing myself, and sort of support in that way. And so you've got to have Jeff there helping you. Just means you're not doing everything on your own, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Although I also have to organize Jeff sometimes.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have to give him a deadline. I'm like, hey, I need this music by this date, because then I have to put it in. I need you to get it to me. Yeah.
So those daily nudges. You didn't forget. That's what Claire said. She'll say, you didn't forget, did you? I'll go, I did. I'll be honest, I did. But I'll do it right now. Okay, I'll go and do it right now. Yeah. It helps. And then also to have Chris to talk to, I think. Because I think the weirdest thing, and part of my little mini crisis in January, is, you can be at a party talking to someone and they're really high up in some corporate job and they're the same age as you. And they'll say, what do you do? And I'm saying, well, and I'll just say words like tiny cat puppets, one-eyed demon who comes through coffee cups. And they're just frowning at me. And it's so nice to have someone else to talk to who's like, no, you keep making those cat puppets. People want to see them.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that. Do you feel like, I don't know what your group of friends is like or who you're encountering over there, but do you feel that like a lot of pressure? How does your family feel about you being freelance?
Well, all of my siblings are freelance. So my mum and dad, who were both teachers, both head teachers, so always great. Worked for the council. Yeah, they were civil servants, and they do not understand what any of us are doing. But it kills them that we don't know where our next paycheck's coming from. But they're very supportive. I think my brother and sister are both in quite sort of corporate jobs. I've always been, I don't like using the term black sheep. It has negative connotations, but they've always known that I wouldn't be in a regular job. I think they just hoped, because of how ill I was, I think that anything's a bonus. They just see that it's just, I've got a stable home life, happy marriage, happy kids. And they're just like, oh, he's doing okay. He's, they're just very supportive in that way to see me do anything. But so this week I've been doing a 7-meter mural, but off-site, that I'll go and install this week. And my dad's been helping, so they're really lovely. They're retired, but he's just like, he's helping me to install it and that kind of stuff. So no, my parents are very supportive. My friends are always lovely, even though some of them don't understand what I'm doing. Because I grew up here, so some of my friends I've known for sort of 30 years, and some are builders and plumbers, and they're like, what are you talking about? But they share my videos around, and they're really complimentary. No one has been negative at all. They're all really supportive, because I was like this at school as well, so it's not the biggest surprise, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, a little off topic. I have a friend who lives in Stoke-on-Trent from Lancaster. Yeah. Really? Or she grew up there. I don't know if she still lives there. Her name is Sally. Oh, what's Sally's last name? Oh, I can't remember. She's gotten married. She has a different last name. But yeah, I've probably
bumped into Sally at some point. Yes.
You probably have. She's awesome.
I have.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice city. It's sort of, I suppose I tried a few times to leave. It's one of those places I didn't intend to be here all the time. I was in London for a while, and obviously Lancaster. But I just think, I don't know, there's something about having a support network, and then there's also something about a city where the cost of living, although it's increasing for everyone, is quite low here. When I was in Vancouver and we were looking to stay there, I looked at the price if I wanted to get a studio, and it was just unbelievable. I just wouldn't be able to do anything. I would be working non-stop just to pay the huge rents out there. So it's just meant that being in the city, that there's a real, I don't know, I find that anywhere that had an industry, because this was the potteries industry, and then that all died away. I find these kind of cities like Stoke or Sheffield, I guess you'd have it in Detroit as an example in the US, where suddenly there's like a surge of creativity. People are like, oh, we can use these low rents and the history, and we can put it all together. And that means that, me looking to get a studio to set up a full stop frame animation rig is not out of the question. That's the plan. Whereas in other cities, I don't think it would be possible.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important piece of it all. Even for me, I live in a suburb of LA, but it's really expensive to live here. Yeah. And I've considered, like, should I move back to my hometown? But even that's getting expensive, just because all of California is now expensive.
I heard that.
Yeah, but it would be much easier for us if we could move someplace where it's cheaper. A lot of actors are moving to Atlanta because you can have a whole career there, and the cost of living isn't astronomical.
Yeah, and I suppose you've also got the competition side is strange, isn't it? Because lots of people in LA have sort of similar aspirations and views, which I guess can be nice in some way. You've got lots of people to talk to about your calling, if you want. Yeah. But at the same time, it's quite competitive, isn't it, out there? And
yeah. The competition is pretty high.
Well, so that's why where we are here, I just thought, well, if I want to open an animation studio, there's nothing else like it in this city. There's a couple in Manchester or Liverpool, but it means I'll get lots of support from the council and from different artistic groups, because no one's doing it. You're the first person, to say, oh, I want to do this. And people want you to succeed because there is no competition. So it's quite nice in that way. Well,
that's also really interesting. An aspect that you have is, you talk about the council, and I assume that it's like the city or the government is able to kind of support the arts. In the US, we don't have that the same way that you guys, it seems like, and Eric and I talked about this a little bit on our episode, he gets a lot of funding from a lot of it seems like a lot of cities.
Canada has lots of, it's quite similar to the UK in that way, isn't it? It does help. I mean, luckily, so my wife's job is a fundraising consultant. So she's always worked with charities or non-profits to get grants and that kind of thing. So, so back in the day, she got us a grant. So Claire and I used to go and sort of convert warehouses in Stoke into art spaces and get schools in and that kind of stuff. And and do exhibitions. It was really good fun. That was when we were in our 20s. but there was a lot of support there from the council. That has dropped a lot under the Conservative government. The first thing they pulled was arts funding.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were like, where are these billions going? No, get rid of that one. So that kind of went. But there are still grants and support. And when I talk to the council, they are supportive because they want to nurture that around here. They don't want it to be, it's called the brain drain in cities like this, where you get good at something and then you leave because if you imagine, we've got Liverpool is an hour away, Manchester's an hour away, and so is Birmingham. So if you get if you get good at something here and you get some support and some interest, you just think, right, I'll move to one of the bigger cities because I'll have a bigger network and everything. So there is support to try and keep you here, which is quite nice. But I'll also be going for, because there isn't as much funding as the old days, I'm going to go for the sort of crowdfunding aspect, because people seem so keen. They've been so supportive. Random strangers on the internet have been so supportive. So they seem to want to support the creation of something silly and surreal and dark and strange. So I'll just go for that and see what happens, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, I'm really excited for you that you've found your niche. And like you said, it may have taken until you were 40 to figure it out. But I mean, I find that as so many of us. And I don't know if it was the time that we were growing up in, or I think there's like this like trickle down from like the greatest generation to the boomers to the Gen X. And you and I are kind of on that cusp, the millennials. So we're like not quite millennials. We're not quite Gen X.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just this like kind of changing the ideas of what a career is going to look like and what our life has to look like. And I think we kind of really challenged it, but it's taken us until now to like have the courage and I don't know, the mental health resources. And I didn't battle with depression and I didn't go through the things that you went through. For me, it was, I was very codependent. So that's its own like challenge. And I, was constantly kind of putting my identity on the people that I was in relationship with and kind of lost myself and, and I identify as a love addict as well, just like, putting people up on a pedestal. And that kind of really like shifted the focus out of myself and onto other people. And
and then those moments when you look back at yourself and you're like, I'm not sure I'm giving myself the time that I need or deserve. But it's nice to see, it's nice sort of being back in touch with you and seeing your situation in the last few years. You've got this, what seems now to be a very nurturing environment with the perfect time, as you're saying, for you, as it is for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also we didn't have, if you think about it, so when I was in bands in my early 20s, if you wanted to do anything with a band, you had to go, it was so the old school model, go and find like a record guy and show him your stuff and hope he doesn't kick you out and, then go and tour the UK and that kind of stuff. It was, or film, write a script, go and try and beg someone or even borrow, cameras were a fortune. I had to go and sort of beg and borrow them to sort of make the weird films I used to make back in the day. But now, at this age, we've suddenly got at our fingertips everything we need to sort of get content out there.
Yeah.
But we've also got that maturity, which I think really helps, because I think I would have made terrible stuff back in the day.
Oh, for sure. Me too. It's interesting. I was listening to the Daniels. You know who the Daniels are? The guys who did Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing film. Yeah.
They're amazing. Yeah. It's an amazing film and they're amazing filmmakers. And I was listening to an interview with them on WTF, Mark Maron's podcast, just last night. And it was interesting hearing them talk about how they met and how they started making things. And Daniel Kwan was talking about how he would look at other people on the internet when he was in film school and realize like that's his competition, the people who are making content right now. And this is probably like 2009 or 2010. And he was always looking forward. And of course, he was like in his 20s then. But there's something about the way that they were talking about it and how they're using the technology now to just like make the weird stuff. And they shared that the first thing that kind of really blew up was that they made a short film together called Swingers, where they were like on a swing and the swing went up in the air, and then they swapped faces and they became like one person. And it was like a really short, goofy thing, but it was totally them. And they just made it for them. They weren't trying to like do anything. They were just like, they wanted to play with visual effects and technology. And that blew up. And so listening to them talk about that was like really inspiring, because I felt like, yeah, that's what it's all about. And I know it's sometimes it sounds silly. Like here I am 43 being like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And they did this in their 20s. But then I think
I think that kind of comparison, you sort of got to just let that go, haven't you? I think if I was making stuff in my 20s, I would have been so concerned about what people thought about what I was making.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't be very good. And now I've kind of got this confidence that I just know that it doesn't really matter. It just, as long as I keep looking at it and keep avoiding cliches and have fun with it. Like I've got, so my assistant on the film over here is my 8-year-old daughter, Willow.
Yay.
Who sits there. She's learning Dragon Frame with me, and we're just doing it for fun, and we're making these little mice and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's just I think if you take the pressure off, like you said with the guys who made the swing short, and you just have fun with it, that's going to shine through. I think if you are overly self-aware or trying to make content to match an audience, it'll just be trash, I think. So it's so important, I think, just to crack on, have that confidence in what you're doing. But that's the hardest thing, isn't it, as well?
Yeah. And I think, like for me, knowing myself better, I now know myself much better than I did in my 20s. And we kind of touched on this already, but yeah, that's where that confidence comes from, I think, is kind of being comfortable with myself. And then you're able to go out and write the thing, make the thing, whatever it is.
And also to listen to other people. I think sometimes it's very easy not to listen. If someone's giving you a compliment, I now listen to them properly. I used to be like, no, and just carry on. Whereas I suppose because like with the short that we had, with those sort of comments coming through from people, someone in Brazil saying, I really can't wait to see what happens to this farmer or this cattle. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. To listen to them and think, no, they really do want to see it.
Yeah.
And so you should, you should finish it, and you should see how it goes. And it doesn't, if you're enjoying the making of it, if I'm enjoying sitting here with my daughter making models and doing silly voices and tunes, it doesn't matter if 4 people see it. It doesn't matter, because I'm just really enjoying doing it. Yeah.
So this has been kind of weighing on me since I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. There's that moment where like they're saying like, hey, you're the worst Evelyn in the universe. I've been feeling like, am I the worst Lisa? Because I have all these like little things that like I'm a little bit talented here, I'm a little bit talented there, I'm a little bit, and then I was thinking, okay, well I could be sad for myself and feel
you are not the worst Lisa. That's absolutely, I can guarantee that. That's really strange. I had a thought about that a few weeks ago.
I think it's it's like because we're like haven't had the like mega success in one area, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? About, I think, when you get to our age, you realize that the idea of success, when you're younger, it was that other people would pay you lots to keep doing it and would keep lavishing praise on you. And everything.
Yeah.
Whereas, in fact, now, if when you put out a good podcast, as I was saying, it doesn't really matter about the audience. If you enjoy doing it, if it's high quality, then that's kind of good enough. But yeah, it's not the same kind of validation. But yeah, I had the same thought. I was thinking, what if it's a simulation, and then I finish the simulation? So this is going to get a bit dark, but if death is the end of the simulation, and I'm like, oh, all right, how did I do? And they were like, you're the worst you've ever had. And I was going to say to them, but what about those people, like that guy in prison and that guy? And they're like, no, they were just NPCs to sort of show a lower grade, but you're like the bottom. I was thinking that the other day. That's really weird. You said that.
Oh, that's so funny. But, I think that film like really kind of, I don't know, if you're in a place where I think we're kind of in a similar place where we're just like really kind of coming into our own in terms of our art. You kind of feel like, have I wasted all these years, or should I?
No, I think it's all been building up. I think it's all experience, and it's all sort of confidence. And I think most of it for me has been working out what I don't want to do. And I think, like you, if you can do lots of different things, then you can think, oh, why aren't I pushing this one? But there's always a reason for it. It's worth trying some things and failing, or not enjoying them, so that you can say, oh, that's probably not my cup of tea.
Yeah.
You know, like I love portrait painting, and I had a big show. Someone was kind enough to come and put my paintings up, and I love doing it. But I recently saw this portrait painter. I can't think of his name. He does portraits for Rag and Bone Man, the singer. He did this amazing series, and I saw his stuff, and I was thinking, well, I'll never be like, he's incredible, and he loves doing it. It's all he wants to do. It's all he thinks about.
Yeah.
Whereas I've tried that, and it was really lovely, and I had a great time. But I know that if I was doing painting full time, and I met someone who was doing weird, surreal short films, I'd be quite jealous of them.
Yeah.
So I think you should, that would be what I want to do. It takes a long time, if you can do lots of things, to work out what you should be doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that like you kind of know that it's your path because of that feeling of like that you would be jealous of them. Yeah. Yeah,
I thought that I should do something so that I could be in a room with anyone and they can tell me what they do, and I don't have that feeling, which I did have. I met someone from my hometown, and he's done amazing. He's got his third script's being turned into a live action film.
Oh wow!
In LA at the moment, they're sort of real like fast action ones. The guy I went to school with, and I went for a coffee with him, and I was really happy for him and really supportive. But at the same time, there was this funny feeling, and I was thinking, oh, is that the little green-eyed monster you've got there?
Yeah,
I think it is a little bit. And I thought the only way to deal with that is you have to work harder. You have to do the thing you want to do. There's no point just sitting there or getting bitter or saying I could have been or anything like that. You've just got to keep creating, whether it's half an hour a day, 10 minutes a day, it doesn't matter, as long as you're working towards that project. Yeah.
And I think they say that the difference between envy and jealousy is that, like with envy, it's like, it's not, you don't want what they have. You want something similar, or you know what I mean? And then someone else that I listen to says hey, if you have that envy, it's because you can do it too. You have that in you, and it's that little part inside of you recognizing that's a part of me, and I'm capable, and it's not that you want to take it away from them. You just want your own.
That's a really good point. You wouldn't sort of feel that envy if you didn't think that you could do it too. Like if I watch a cooking show and I'm the worst cook in the world, I don't feel envy or jealousy. I just think, wow, look what they can do. I have no idea what they're doing. But I suppose if it's something where I like to do it, or I've done something similar, or they're my aspirations, and I suppose when I was ill, I used to get quite sad about it and think, oh, that's a shame you aren't doing anything like that at the moment. Whereas now I just think, no, come on, use that little fire, put it in your belly.
Yeah.
Get back home and just, do another hour of puppet making, send the script off, work on the music and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about how your family life incorporates into your art, because it seems just from, online and everything, it seems very much like, and it sounds like it's both with Claire's work too. Everything is a family affair, and that seems really special. Like your kids are involved in what you do, and
yeah, it is. They're massively artistic. I don't believe in sort of genetic. They just, I suppose they've seen me take time to sit and draw or paint, and they sit and they draw and make videos and shorts all day, every day. If you let them, my 11-year-old's got her own YouTube channel doing her drawings, and little one likes to make the models with me, and she writes sort of stories. And for Christmas, she wanted an old-fashioned typewriter.
Aww.
So Santa brought her one, and she sits and she's tapping away. It's like being with a sort of 1950s journalist. She's sort of it's like punching away at those keys, writing her stories about animal hotels and stuff. And so I suppose it's always been around us. It's all they've seen because it's all I've done.
Yeah,
really. But they've always been so kind. They've come along on days when I've had to work, but I've also got the kids, and they've been on murals with me, out in the sun, the whole family will chip in and support it in that way. I think it's just as long as I'm doing the being a good dad and husband as well. I think if you're doing it nonstop and you're like, no, this is my art, don't you understand my art? And you're not, if you're not doing the washing, not cooking, not getting the kids to school, then I think that's just a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
So I think if you make sure that, I'm doing my normal work, so that sort of bringing my side of the money in, and then I'm with the kids all the time. We'll sit and draw together because that's nice bonding time, but also it's something we're both creating. But yeah, whether they're doing it more because they've seen me do it or because it's just innate in them, I'm not sure. But we are a family with a big table covered, right now, it's covered in glue guns and material and pens. And they've been drawing all morning. My daughter's been making police ID cards for cats. So she's just been, that's her project, and just cracking on with all these things. But it's the nice thing about this project is I just decided to be a bit less of a control freak, even though it's all what I want in terms of music and script and everything. So my 8-year-old has genuinely been coming up with ideas for the short film, and they're superb. And I'm not just saying that was like, she sort of came up with the idea. I was saying, what could a cat be watching on TV? And she was like, Mouse Island. I said, what's Mouse Island? She's like Love Island, but with mice with bikinis. And I was like, that's superb. That's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
I know. So now we've got the whole joke of the short film is that the cat's not listening to this demon, and he just keeps drifting off and watching TV. So we've got these mice in bikinis sort of going meh, 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 to each other about like a takeoff of Love Island, and it's just working. It's just really good fun. I'm listening. I'm not just saying, "Oh, that's cool, babe," and doing my own thing.
Yeah.
Because what mind is more open to new and strange ideas than an 8-year-old?
Yeah.
So I'm genuinely taking it on board, and it's working. And I'm spending time. I'm working with her. We're together all the time doing stuff. She seems happy. So yeah, it's at the moment it's a really nice environment to be making things in. I'm not having to juggle too much because I just do what I know I need to do as a dad.
Yeah.
And then I know that in the evenings I put the kids to bed, and then that's my time, at least for an hour, to work on the film. And everyone knows that, and no one minds that. So as long as you're clear with people and you do you make sure that you're doing what he's doing.
Yeah. I think that's important. Dedicating, kind of cordoning off those times. Like, this is Dad's time to work on his art.
It's so hard. You feel really guilty some days as well.
Yeah.
No, I was sitting making, what was I making? I'm making a small retro TV the other day. And I'm like, no, I've got to do my small retro TV. And again, it can seem really silly, but that's a really necessary part of the film.
Yeah.
And if I didn't make one, sometimes as well, it would be so easy when you're really tired after, this past week I've been doing 8 hours in the cold doing outdoor murals. And I get back and I'm really, really sort of physically cold and tired. It's been a hard week. And I do not want to sit there just be like, I just want to sit on the sofa and flop.
Yeah.
But then I know that if I light a fire, sit down, get some music on, do half an hour at least on the film, then I'll go to bed a bit happier. So I do make myself do it.
Yeah, that's good. That's dedication, discipline. Good job.
Trying to, yeah. It's working this year. I didn't have it before. It's the first time I've done it, but it's definitely, it's definitely working so far.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what do you look forward to as you continue to age? I mean, I know you have the short film, which is going to be your breakout short film. But what are you looking forward to as you continue to grow your career now that you've kind of found a bit of a path?
I think the idea of growing, but in a small, controlled way. I think when you're younger, you're just like, oh, I want to be an animation studio, and then we'll be the biggest animation studio. Mm-hmm. But what I found when I started doing web design, because I've always done my own stuff, is when I brought other people on and started to run a team. That was when I was most sad. That's when I was most anxious, because I stopped doing the thing. I wasn't designing or doing any of the stuff. I was just managing people, and I don't want that. So again, it was a sad time, but again, it's taught me that with an animation studio, I would like a small animation studio where I'm still fully hands-on. I would like, it would be nice to have a dedicated space, to start building a bit of a name for, to take Studio Ghibli, for example, to make a studio where everything you do has got that quality to it, and you are going to be known for it. So you're not going to put out any duff work.
Yeah,
I would like that. Even if it takes 2 years to make some bizarre short film, and people are like, what are you doing? If you're really happy with this, if it's exactly what we want to do. So I'd like to have a small studio, hopefully an apprentice. Hopefully Claire would like to work with me on the sort of production side. Mm. So to have a small family animation studio would be fantastic, and that's where I'm aiming at the moment.
That's great. And do you think you'll take the cat characters and develop them into like a series, or would it just be the shorts?
I don't know. This one came about. This was just to test drag and frame to test everything. But so my mistake I always make is I start with a short film, then it gets huge. So when Chris and I started with 2 short film ideas, I think in the end one's 45 minutes long and one's an hour. I just get really dark and into them. You know, one was meant to be a really simple one and it ended up being this whole. The cat one is meant to be just a tester. I'm keeping it within 5 pages of script, so it's
good job.
Yes, keeping it to the minimum. If people like it, I would do a few more of those. But the idea was that it's some visual evidence to go and try and get funding to do the main script we've written, which is the one that I sent across to you.
Yeah.
Because this is another thing. When I sat down, I said, well, you know, why aren't you making stuff? Because I've got friends who have got all these massive talents. I've got, you know, there's you and Dom, our friend, who's an amazing actor as well. And I'm so lucky in that way. Yeah. So lucky. But yes, I'll have to see where it goes. I would like eventually to do a full feature length film, but obviously that takes years and years and years. So it'll be a slow build up to try and get funding, and it's about proving yourself. Yeah. But the nice thing was that we got those numbers in terms of views and things. That's been a really big thing to talk to people and say that, you know, just tiny shorts have got massive reactions. So I'm really confident. I'm confident, and as long as the quality's there and as long as everyone enjoys themselves, and it'll just be a sort of happy space to make things, really.
That's wonderful. I love that. Okay, so I always ask my guests 2 questions. My first question is always, what advice do you have for either the budding young artist or someone who's maybe just now finding their way in their middle age? I
think just to try and relax a bit is my main thing. I think just to try and take the pressure off, and just as long as you're outputting a little bit, just a tiny bit, whether it's 5 minutes a day or whether if you can do half an hour, fair enough, or a bit at the weekend if you've got that time booked, then good things will come. You will finish things and you'll get them out there and people will notice, and it might be one track someone picks up on SoundCloud, one YouTube short or something. But I think my advice would be to relax and take the pressure off. Stop thinking about your potential audience. Don't try and fit your content around that. Just do what makes you happy and just try and relax with it. Get yourself in a good place. Yeah. Put some Chet Baker on. And and just kick back a bit and just enjoy it, I think, rather than don't get stressed, because I think, I know I've mentioned David Lynch a few times, he's a big hero, but he said, when you're suffering, you can't create. And I think whether that's suffering in terms of money or pressure or anything, so try and take those pressures off and enjoy it would be my advice.
I think that's a really good point, is that, if I hadn't heard that quote before, but that really resonates with me.
Well, I think people always think that he's sort of dark and miserable, and I saw some interviews and he said people can't create if they're that, you know, you need to go through some stuff. You need to have been through things, I think. And you then, you know, whether you're making a film or a script, you're interpreting all that stuff that happened to you. So it's important to have those life experiences. But the idea that you have to be really miserable, like sort of Rimbaud poet, and just be sort of drowning your sorrows in absinthe, and that you'll be able to suddenly make an amazing film. I don't think that's possible.
No.
You need to be in a good place. It's very hard to live that life. Like, you know, I know some artists do, but if you can look after yourself mentally as well, and then you'll be able to make things. It'll be a lot easier.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Okay, so then let me ask you. My final question is, what does making it mean to you now versus when you were younger? So what would success look like to you?
Well, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think when I was younger, it would have been validation, so external validation, whether that be through awards or a big job or a title or something like that. I think, but I think that would have been quite bad for me. I think success now it's quite small in terms of, it would just be quite a few small changes, because I would still like a smaller studio, however much people like the things I was doing. And I'm really cheap to keep. I'm a really cheap date. I don't need much at all. I don't have huge hobbies, or I don't need expensive things. So for me, success seems quite attainable, because it would just be, I would probably phase out doing web and design work, because I've been doing that for about 20 years now. Yeah. Especially the design stuff. And I've had lots of fun doing it. I had great clients, but it definitely feels more like a job. Whereas to be able to do this full time would be just an absolute dream. But it doesn't seem too far off if people like what I do. So success would literally be just to have a nice studio around the corner and some nice people to work with, and just the time to keep making things.
Yeah, it is funny how when you start to make things and people seem to like it and you're getting some validation, it does feel like, oh, the success is not that far off. It feels like you can see it, whereas I don't know, when you're a little lost or whatever, it feels like it's so far away, and how would I ever get there? But yeah,
it's the worst feeling. I had a temp job in London. I was in an office building. I could see the Tate Modern across, and I used to sit there doing this filing, looking out, and I've never felt further away.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, what are you doing? There's people in there, and they get paid to paint and make sculptures and things, and here's me sort of in human resources.
Yeah,
not knowing what I was doing, and but in fact, it wasn't that far away. I stopped doing that, and you just find a way that you can create without financial pressures. I suppose is a big one, and then you start working towards it slowly.
Yeah, and it's a mindset change too, right? When you start to see the world as in a different way, you realize how close we all are to each other. This podcast has helped me with that a lot. Like as I start talking to people, I realize these people are all within my circle, and they're all amazing, and so it's not that far off.
It's not. We're all doing stuff, and it's so nice to hear everyone's projects, and they're all working away. And just to think that there are these evolved monkeys who have to just sort of make things all the time. We're just busying away. There's no real reason to it. We're just like, oh, I have to make visual things or things out of clay and stuff. It's just, I love it. I think it's wonderful. I think you can, if you have that mindset, you can never be bored. I think sometimes though I did have to give myself a chat in January when I was having my little blip. And sometimes it's that kind of mindset. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, complaining about my day job, which was, doing mural work, which I love. I was like, you're painting and people like it. And in the evenings you're making the puppets and with your kids, just realize how lucky you are and how unlucky some people are in the world. There are some people who don't get a chance to come anywhere near this just because of, political and economic factors. We're so lucky, and I think at this age it's easier to say to yourself, come on, you're doing okay, this is you're having a nice time with it.
Yeah Definitely. This has been really wonderful. I'm so glad we made this work.
Me too. I'm really glad, and I'm glad we did it after my blip. I'm glad I could talk about the blip. I think it's very important.
That's what I wanted to say. With the blip, I had my own little blip with my tips with Teresa, because I started doing season 2, and then
I'm such a fan.
I know you love her.
And that's one of those things. I love Teresa. It's so subtle. It's very British in a way.
Oh yeah.
It is. It's got that real subtle irony and sarcasm, which I like the fact that some people might watch it and not even get it. Some people might actually think it's serious.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. Weirdly, we were watching, my daughter and I, Eva loves it too. We watched one the other day. Because I was showing her who you were.
Yeah.
Podcast with. So we were watching one the other day, and I don't know your life. It's just so sarcastic and fantastic. And again, I just know that people will happen upon that and be blown away. Just keep making that, because it's just fantastic.
I had to step away because I started doing season 2, and then I was like, I'm not getting the likes that I thought I would, or whatever, and so I was like, okay, Lisa, you need to take a break, and it's getting in your head. And so, and then I was like, what am I doing? I had my little mini crisis. What am I doing? This is
right.
But
there again, it's funny, isn't it? Because it doesn't really matter about the likes, because it's objectively good. But then it's hard, isn't it, to tell yourself, no, I'll keep doing it.
Yeah,
I'm objectively good at this. So I understand why that's tricky. Please keep making it.
I will. I'm waiting for the flow to come back. When the flow comes back, and I felt like the flow stopped. So when the flow comes back, then I'll start making them again.
That's it. You can't force it if it's not there. But also just remember, I'm not really on socials too much at all, but when the algorithm hit us in that way, it was so bizarre. Before then, I've put all sorts out for years, and no one's ever looked at no one cares about anything I've done before. And so just to wake up and look and be like, wow, 1,000 people have had a look. And the next day my friend called me and he was like, have you seen the views? You never know. And I think that could be it can be hard on your confidence if the likes aren't coming initially. But then the nice thing about the situation at the moment and the open access we have to being able to put media out universally is that you could wake up tomorrow and someone, these stories where someone's happened upon and someone sees Teresa and they're like, oh my God, we need to find this content creator because that's superb. You don't know what's happening, but that is very possible.
Yes, that is true. Well, she'll live out there in the ethers. And
please, she will. And selfishly for me, please keep making it.
Yeah, I will. All right. Well, this has been so awesome. I know you get to run off and go see our friend Dom, which is awesome.
Yes, I'm off to see our friend Dom, who's, as we both know, a very talented actor.
Yes.
I bring him onto all projects. I just call him up and I go, could you do a voice for? And he's like, yes. And he's really busy doing his own jobs and stuff. I'm so lucky that I have these people who I know are just fantastic actors like yourself and Dom. So yes, off to see Dom tomorrow. Off to finish a bit of muraling today, just so I can switch off for the weekend.
Yes,
it's been lovely chatting to you.
It's been so good. Please give your love to give my love to your family.
I will, and likewise. I hope little one feels better. And yes, and thank you for doing this so early. I'm so appreciative.
Absolutely. No, I wanted to make this happen.
Peppy.
Coffee helps.
Coffee always helps, but no, I'm glad we did. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you, Lisa.
Talk soon. Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. You can follow Tom on Instagram at Cyclops_the_artist, or check out his website, tladdis.com. Also, check out his animation studio and their projects on Instagram at we_r_moon_studio. All of this is linked in the show notes, so you don't have to remember it. Just go there and click through. If you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And please share the show with your friends. Share it on Instagram. Word of mouth is the best. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at makingitafter40, the number 40. And to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thank you again for listening and have an excellent week.